Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to keep doing these videos about media that we don't talk about. So I thought I would come and do a little throwback, if you will. This is gonna be kind of a little bit more. It's not gonna be like as this is more family oriented. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the whole family. So some of these things are things that I think the whole family can enjoy. And I just this one in particular, this is a part of my childhood. So I still watch it to this day. It is such a great movie, and it's the specific one that I'm going to talk about. There are many different adaptations, versions, but this one that I'm going to talk about is more the one that I personally grew up with. And we're gonna nod to the original, and this is the original story. If you read it, I did get a chance to read it. I think over COVID, but um, this it's a little bit different in the way that it was presented, and I ate this up. I devoured this movie when I first saw it. I loved it. But we are going to be talking about A Little Princess from 1995, not the Little Princess with Shirley Temple, the other one. So obviously we know the original was a Shirley Temple movie that, I mean, it was fine. There wasn't anything wrong with it. It was probably almost shot for shot the same. So if you are familiar with that one, you'll be familiar with this one, vice versa. It doesn't. But this one, it really brings to mind though that time period in the 90s when we did certain period pieces. Um, you know, it's funny because there was a time when we did these period pieces and it was so special. I don't know, like it brings me back to the 1993 version of The Secret Garden, like that. To this day, if I'm having like a stressful time, I'll put that movie in and I will just I'm locked in, and I want a blanket and just cozy up. It's one of those type of movies. Um so um we have kind of a unknowns kind of cast. This isn't anything um big name. However, I am looking at the cast list and I see that where is she? A young Camila Bell played one of the characters. I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize. But yes, so it's not the cast that makes this, epic or anything. However, the acting is very well done in my mind. Who am I though? But the reason why I think it needs to be talked about more is I feel like the writing, the way that they adapted it, it's just so much more of the story, and I don't think that we got that from the original version that was adapted. I don't know. I didn't think so. So if you don't know the story, a little girl is brought to a boarding school, basically back in the 1920s, and um, her dad has to go to war. He's a naval officer. He has to go to war, and her mother has passed away, so she has no one else. There is no other family, so she must stay at this boarding school. And she is basically a normal kid. And she's American. But this school is very, more on the British side. If you know anything about British culture, which from high school I've been obsessed with British culture, so I understand that British children are taught to be a certain way, live a certain way. They don't really speak unless spoken to. They don't express their thoughts much. They don't really see much of anything or do much of anything. And that's why when they get older, a lot of times they're very wild, they're very outrageous because they're, out on their own. But Sarah, the character in this movie, is very much not that. She's very American. She thinks and she goes ahead and just says it. She's very energetic. She's very, very poised, yet young. And me being very little when I watched this, that sort of made me be that kind of person. She likes to read, she likes to tell stories, and I've always been interested in stories. I love stories. They're exciting. Stories are something that are a cool way to see life. So for me, that's what makes this movie special is we have this character that I think we can all sort of relate to. And there's also a sort of teaching process for her because she kind of is learning too. I mean, she doesn't not learn anything. She learns, there are certain things that, okay, well, we don't really talk much at the breakfast table. Okay, but we could talk a little. And so it's kind of like that culture connecting sort of story, and everybody learns from everybody. And, there is a happy medium. But what I think is so special about this, we delve into, what goes on in the school, the girls who maybe didn't get as much, don't have as much, they are treated a certain way, and then the girls who have everything, and what I also think is interesting is we have the character of Miss Minchin. So let's back up. So first of all, we have Sarah, played by Liesl Matthews. This girl, I don't know why, but it's just it was such a perfect choice. I don't know her. Did not see her in anything else. This is great. But then we also have Miss Minchin, played by Eleanor Braun, and love to hate her. She is one of the coolest characters I think I've ever seen. We don't. Who gave you this orphanage, or this not orphanage, this boarding school? Who gave you this? But what I love is that you see cracks forming in her character. Not necessarily a character arc, but we see the cracks forming, and we see something is different about this person. In the way that she responds and reacts to this little girl. And she's like, oh, you have everything, don't you? And, oh, you're not going to continue to, worm your way through, when that's not what she was doing. She was speaking her mind. But she didn't like that. And I think what makes it so obvious is a moment when she makes fun of Sarah for calling herself a princess. She had mentioned it somewhere. And she, laughs and, oh, you're not a princess. And she says, and I love this quote. And I've shared it on social media. One day I shared, there's a clip of it and I shared it. But she says, I am a princess. All girls are. No matter what, whether we're old, young, I'm paraphrasing. Old, young, thin, fat, ugly, pretty. Even if we don't have any money, it's our birthright. And then she says, didn't your father tell you that? And you see the look on her face. This woman acted this so well because you see the look on her face of, and you kind of get struck a nerve. And that's when I think you start to see maybe there was a little more going on than just the fact that she didn't want her to not follow the rules or, any of those things that she had nitpicked about previously. And it really opens up a dialogue, I think, because, well, why would somebody react like that? Why would somebody think like that? And I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing it because it's a family movie, but I just think that was so well done. And I do, like I said, I do remember reading the book, and it was very similar. It was a very similar feel, and I think this story is just so perfect for what we're talking about here. Family movies, everybody would enjoy it. There's comedy, there's some moments that are just so funny. And then there's moments that are like that are just like, it really makes you think. And it's just such a heartwarming story. And what I love too is you have this sort of connection that Sarah gets with this little girl, Becky. In this movie, she's played by Vanessa Chester. And, at first it's just, a comment here and there. But then Sarah finds herself staying with her, and they can become friends so easily. And it just sort of, brings another aspect to the story. And I think it's such a simplistic way to put that part of the story. We learn certain things as we age, and when we're young, things are just so much easier. But for me, I think this part of the story is just sort of the next layer that you get into, and it just, in a way, it breaks my heart, but then in another way, it's just so sweet. And I think too, you see how you wouldn't have thought, at least I, wouldn't have thought that somebody coming from a certain background would feel that way, but because there was a difference in the way that this character is supposed to have been raised, that makes the difference. All the other girls are like, oh, well, we're not supposed to talk to her. But she's like, why? She's right there. And even in the moment when she first sees her and she's serving breakfast and she says, thank you, she thinks nothing of it. And they're like, oh, we don't talk at the breakfast table. And she's like, that doesn't seem right. All she did was say thank you. And who else would have that reaction? You're being served. Oh, thank you. And, it just brings another aspect of a story where some things just weren't right, and I feel like, we don't necessarily stay in that, on that subject, but it's definitely there, and I think it's something that really brought, like I said, another layer to the story and showed how differently she was raised, and I think that's what, makes a couple of these characters be a little bit salty with her because, well, that's not how, but that's how she was raised. She was raised very naturally, very organically, and I love it. And yet they look at her, and she has this porcelain doll that her father gave her, and this locket that her father gave her, and these clothes. But he worked for them. He worked for those things, and the family worked for those things, and the family deserved it. And nobody needed to be envious of that. They could do it too. And it just, it, I will say it does irk me when stuff like that happens, because if I worked for something, don't judge me for having it. um, you know, and, maybe somebody else might disagree, but I don't know. But I think this version is so special because, like I said, going back to the time period, we had these period pieces. The copy that I have actually has the 1993 version of The Secret Garden on the other side of it, and I'll watch them both all the time. Watch this one, flip it over, watch the other, and it's just, I mean, I watch that, I get comfortable, watch this, then watch that, then I'm ready for bed. I'm all comfy, and okay, I can go to bed now. It's one of my favorite things to do, like, if I don't have anything else on, and there's, like, nobody at home, I'm not doing anything, I'll put it on, and it's just kind of like and it's just so, so nice. But, um, you know what, I just think, like I said, this is not that different from the original Shirley Temple version, almost shot for shot. But the difference in the way that it was done, I feel like you had to be there to understand it. I don't know. And it just, for me, from the first shot, I'm right back there. And I think maybe that's why I'm so protective of it, and I'm so, like, this one specifically is just, it sticks out in my mind so much. But I think it's worth talking about because it's something that we don't talk about. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one, so I thought I would bring it up. It's saying that it's available on Tubi, but when you look it up, it's some random mini-series that was not this. This one I would search Amazon for because you're gonna love it. And I, hey, maybe it's in some bargain bin somewhere. I don't know. And maybe somewhere in the YouTube ether, maybe somebody talked about it. I don't know. I really don't know. But I have not seen anybody talk about it, so I thought I would bring it up. And that's what this is all about, is bringing up media that people don't talk about and talking about why it should be talked about. And just giving you something cozy to remember or to look into, if you are somebody who was the same age as me, you'll understand those movies are just so different. I think that's why those of us who were teenagers and are now adults and um, continue to rewatch the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice. Guilty. um, that's why. Because there's just such a difference in the way those specific period pieces were done that now when we see them like that, it's so special. Obviously I don't need to talk about that one because everybody talks about that one because it's the best one. And I don't care what anybody says. I will fight anybody who says that is not the best one. But I digress. That's why we love that so much, in my opinion. But yeah, this is something I think everybody should check out if you have not. And let me know if you have. Did you guys grow up watching this? Was there something else like it that you grew up watching? Anything like that? I'm really interested to know. Am I the only one? Because I feel like other people must have. I know this one in particular was on HBO Family a lot, and maybe you didn't have HBO. I don't know, but I know for my birthday one year I got the double disc set because I also had the VHS of The Secret Garden and watched it all the time. And so anyway, that was why I wanted to bring it up because it's so special to me, and I think it might be special to someone else. So make sure you're subscribed though, because I've got all kinds of stuff going on that I'm gonna be sharing and working on, and editing is a big process. So sometimes some things might be a little delayed, but we're gonna get there. I'm gonna try my hardest to get this stuff uploaded on Sundays, but it might not always be right away. So just make sure you're turning on post notifications and make sure that you are commenting, liking, and it shows the algorithm on YouTube that this is something worth watching. And I pray that you guys think that it is, and I hope that I can gain as I go and maybe even give you guys input and give some ideas for other content. I have some content that I got listed that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be continuing this for a little while, some different things. So it's going to be a research process. Hopefully I can get everything I need to give you a cool channel. So we'll see where this goes. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you tune in next time.